We're back. Sort of. Well, we might be. I don't know. We're streaming again. No idea. Somebody say something on the chat.
Oh, no.
Hello?
Are we hearable or not? Are we seeable?
For the foreseeable future.
I don't know, but it's
Dan, be saying anything in the chat?
and streaming somewhere.
The chat is ready to display messages.
Streaming to something.
Can y'all see us?
Is there anybody out there?
Signs of life. We can hear you. Audio is good. You guys are live. Woo. Thank you.
But can they see us?
But they can't see us?
Yeah. You're confirming audio. What if I wave slowly? I'll do the Trump dance. I'm going to do the Trump dance. Can you see it? Did you see the Trump dance?
Okay. Apparently we're back on.
Yeah, okay.
You did. Good.
So go.
Okay, as we were saying, the band's going to make it. Trump is going to make the empire great again. He should have run on that if that's what the issue is. Because this is deceptive. If what you're saying is in the ballpark, right? The whole exercise in genuine democracy, populist democracy, Trump running, MAGA, is going to break it. Not just for everyone outside in the vassals and on the periphery of the empire, but in the empire, in the homeland, right? So Trump meant well, but he's going to do a foobar.
Well,
or
that remains to be
possibly.
seen.
Remains to be seen.
It remains to be seen. But I think it's always a very complicated topic, and nobody knows really how deep this whole thing goes and how far up it goes, and who the people are behind the scenes, and what kind of the extent of their influence, and how they might pivot and change course. But look, I'm not denying that it's a good thing that that Trump is attempting to move away from the kind of woke faggotry and diversity and even freedom and democracy based color revolution, regime change thing that the US has done most recently in the past 10 years, let's say, of pushing that aspect of it onto populations. And if you think about the reasons they would do that, why were they doing that?
It's bizarre.
Well,
Because why they didn't need to, or
well, they do everything from building houses to rape crisis centers,
Yes.
to save the children, to save the whales, to save the marmots, to save the lizards,
yeah,
to fund the
save that fish in California.
fund the research into worms in Ethiopia and stuff like that. That's an attempt to completely.
Oh, they did sex changes on mice too.
Right, all that kind of stuff. So it's empire on steroids,
Yeah.
or depending on your perspective, it's just the nature of empire. America has been an empire for a very long time, which by definition means that they have quite a long time ago, not every country, but captured most countries in the world to one extent or another. And they were always and continually attempting to increase and expand their overall capture of all of the institutions in that country, including the minds of the people in the country.
And to
Because
manage.
that's the fullest extent of empire.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's no limit to it. Like if you start down the road of empire, where do you stop?
Well,
Do you just want to, or how do you
Well, can you
maintain an
s-
empire?
can
Where do
you
you put
s-
some garrisons in every single country of your empire, and you maintain control that way? And the people in the country know that they're vassals of empire. They don't like it, and periodically they might rebel, or you might have all sorts of subversion attempts going on all the time. So that's why you have your military garrison there. And every time the locals get uppity, you go out and beat them with your swords or your guns, whatever, and you keep it down, and you keep extracting the taxes and the wealth, etc. That's just basic empire.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do that if you're doing it for freedom and democracy. You have to maintain some semblance of what you claim you're doing it for. Otherwise, you just say, look, y'all are my bitches, and you're going to do what I say. You're going to have Dwayne Elizondo Camacho Mountain Dew III as president, and he's just going to say it like that.
They kind of did in Obama, but yeah.
Well, no, but he's the one who started the diversity thing. So you know, if you have this nuanced, modern, progressive, freedom and democracy empire, then it's going to fund all sorts of very positive things, and right down to, and what we're seeing here is not just extracting resources from the country. That's just top level. That's the first go-to thing. But in order to maintain that control and influence over the population, you need full capture of the country, including the
Media,
including the government and the population, the minds of the population, in perpetuity. If you want to have a 1,000-year Reich, then it has to be permanent, and it has to be insidious in the way that it maintains that control. It has to be complete control. So that's why you fund all these different projects within the country. You're building houses, you're funding rape crisis centers, all that kind of stuff that we know about already. You've captured the politicians in that country. You have them all either paid off or blackmailed or whatever, or killed if you need to. But the element of the woke kind of LGBTQ stuff that is catching people's attention right now, that has been going on, let's say, at least for the past 10 years, maybe longer. You could explain that by the need for anti-populism, to destroy nationalism, and national identity, and national, let's say, conservative, in the literal meaning of the word, or the original traditional meaning of the word, conservative values within a country, because those conservative values, which would be two genders, family values, man, woman, children, wholesome, Christian, whatever values, or even Islamic values, whatever.
As depends. Yeah.
Right. You need to destroy those because they're conservative values, and they go along with an idea of national identity as well. They're very closely attached together.
Sure.
And when you have national identity, that's an impediment to empire, because empire expanding out,
open borders,
outraying out from the seat of empire in
open
America.
Markets.
Everybody has to be like us. They have to see themselves as just versions of Americans, basically versions of us. That's how we maintain that control.
That was literally the name of their China policy 100 years ago. It's called Open China,
right?
And that's how they were ballistic when the communists took over in 49.
Right. All countries have to open themselves to our ideology. Now, it's not necessarily an ideology that the people in the seat of empire, the empire builders, they themselves personally hold, but they realize that those values are useful and necessary in order to maintain, to create, maintain, and expand empire and perpetuate empire. So you could put the whole LGBT thing and promotion of those kind of deviant, really anti-human values, gender transition,
like a battering ram, ideological battering ram.
Yes, to spread those values in society, push and use it as a threat to the government. Big up those groups, find those groups within a country like Bangladesh, as what you call Mike Benz has been talking about, but they've done it in many other countries as well. Where's the last place you would really
expect to see it?
And women's rights in Afghanistan, all that kind of stuff. Trying to subvert those Islamic, fundamental Islamic in Islamic countries, those ideals, which are conservative. Right, everybody agrees that fundamental Islam is conservative, right? And like I said, that goes along with Islam for the Islamists, or this Islamic country for the people in this Islamic country, and fuck off empire.
Yeah,
don't like that. Hit them with the LGBTQs and
jihad MAGA.
No. Well, that was what ISIS was.
No. Yeah, I don't mean to conflate the two. I mean real, like jihad for us, like the real thing, not the fake gay one.
Yeah. So you could put it in that category of just another tool of empire to promote that kind of thing when they don't believe it, which is why Marco Rubio would have been turning a blind eye to it, or even, going along with
Yeah.
it, signing up to
But
it,
they all were. Yeah.
because it serves America's interest, which he said, it serves America's national interest, which is to maintain our empire and maintain control over these countries. But there is you could infer or impute a more nefarious agenda, obviously, because that's, well, at the very least you can say that's not good for the world in general. We don't.
I think that's where Trump's coming from.
We don't want a world where drag queens in every country in the world are teaching kids about non-binary
Sex.
orientation or gender surgery, gender reassignment surgery. Those are fundamentally anti-human. Now, once you see that aspect of it and see that under the State Department, under the US government, as it has been up until now, they've been promoting that around the world. They may have been promoting it for their own imperial ends, but if someone else was using their agenda and trying to promote that through them to create an entire world, eventually, maybe who knows how long it would take, but create an entire world of LGBTQ ideology around the whole world, then
Well, you can
that's that. Maybe who has that agenda? Is that an agenda? And who has that agenda? It may just be a means to an end for the bureaucrats and the politicians to maintain empire, but are they being instrumentalized? Are they tools of some higher power that actually wants to turn the whole fucking world gay, and is using them and their agenda to promote the higher ups agenda of doing that? Obviously, you don't know, you're getting a bit into kind of murky territory, but there's no denying that if they had been left to do what they have been doing over the past 10, 15 years at least, then you would have had some version of a world that was LGBTQified. You would have had gender reassignment surgeries and springing up in many
And the end of the human race.
clinics. Yeah, ultimately.
The end of the human race.
Maybe,
It's something that's talked about with the people who are discussing postmodernism and postmodern praxis, whatever you want to call it, how all of that stuff was intended to undermine the family. And why do you need to undermine the family? It's so that there's no opposition to the nanny state.
The state. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Of course.
along the lines of what you're saying, then it becomes like a two-pronged thing where everybody is no longer nationalistic because we're all Americans of a sort, and then at the same time it undoes the possibility of there being anything to stop that hegemony from going all the way down into the
local level, level of population. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's their agenda. It's
You
to
said
capture minds.
an empire has one general trend and direction it goes in. It needs to sustain total control. Where you keep going with that is eventually, like the Nazis, in that crazy experiment, the state has to get inside your head. And there are activists in the 60s who became the philosophical gods of the LGBTQ movement, where they literally said, the private is the public. We want inside your kids' heads.
Yeah.
So
We're going to create a utopia.
Now-
a utopia.
at the very least, we can agree, and this isn't just transient, the masses of people, at least in the United States, Europe's kind of still, I don't know where Europe's at, no one knows, but the American population has said, no. Okay, if this ends up wrecking the whole boat, so be it. We do not want that control of the minds of kids, of our own kids or any kids.
Well, that's the reason why this is happening, because all of this was being done in America. Regime change, this like a color revolution, effectively, an LGBTQ faggy color revolution was launched on America probably 10 years ago. Began in America 10 years ago, and the CIA, these intel agencies, and the State Department, and all that kind of stuff, all the stuff that people are looking at what they're doing overseas, they have been doing that in America for the past 10 years.
Exactly. And Ben's a state of this too. He said there's now no longer a distinction between domestic and foreign policy.
Yeah,
it's one and the same. And at the very least, they want the brakes on that. That's inevitably going to have knock-on consequences. Does it mean it's going to wreck the whole empire? Is it possible to have a benevolent empire?
No.
You can have a benevolent dictator.
You can kind of have a benevolent empire, but it's very much an empire at a distance, that only extracts a little bit of, tithes or whatever here and there, or You could look at the Ottoman Empire in its later stages as maybe a version of that, which was very, very much hands-off type thing, and it worked. But the problem is that if you don't have that, if you don't keep hands-on in a very direct way, then eventually it won't really last usually very long. But my question about this whole thing is that you have to remember is that all the stuff that they're highlighting of all the expenses, all the waste, let's say, and use of American taxpayers' money on all these different programs around the world and in America, they're reviewing all of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the stuff you're seeing being put out by Musk and whoever else, that's all being reviewed by the Trump administration to see which of it. So we're putting a pause on all this funding until we decide what we're cutting and what we're allowing to go back. So it's premature for anybody to say that it's being gutted completely.
Sure.
They're going to, over the next however long, decide to reinstate a lot, 50%, I don't know, of those programs, I think. Because, like I said, a lot of them, leaving aside the crazy stuff, a lot of them are part of the fabric of these other countries that are vassals of empire. And they serve America's national interests.
Although to hear some of the testimonies coming out of Africa, have you seen some of the videos? Ordinary Africans are all over TikTok apparently, and they're going, yes, cut the money, it doesn't come to us. It doesn't, we don't get it. Anyway.
Well, that's the other aspect of it.
All it's doing is propping up the crony regimes,
right,
which keep us down anyway.
Right.
For the
it's a money laundering kind of thing, because an awful lot of the money that is being spent on those programs in those other countries is going into the pockets of directors, employees, etc., of USAID and other agencies. Like we said, there's many other agencies doing the same thing, and all of that money is American taxpayers' money going to the government, taxpayer money going to the government, being given to these programs, who then give them to
bribes.
The first line is they give them to Americans who are working for these agencies overseas, of which there are probably hundreds of thousands. And they're all being paid salaries and then paying income tax back in. So it's creating jobs for Americans. And that's leaving out. That's not even talking about any kind of grift going on or excess payments or overcharging and all that kind of stuff, and money being siphoned off left, right, and centre. And that's going back to prop up the American economy in a certain sense, or to create wealth in America. So it's a circular.
This reminds me of Kelly's lecture about the crime and the economy. Did you hear that one? I wish I had it. He's giving a meeting, and it's the press are there too, but it's got his cabinet, and it's in Spanish, and then someone put the subs on it. And he's saying, being asked about what he did by just overnight sweeping all the criminals into secure facilities.
In El Salvador, you mean,
yeah? And he's like, there were people there, and they were telling me, and he said they weren't like lefties or anything. These were guys economists from a security service, and they were saying, Mr. President, it's your agenda and it's your prerogative to want to do that. But here's the thing. And they started telling him the neoliberal economic theory about what happens if you reduce crime too fast. If you sweep them all off the streets overnight, the economy we estimate will crash by 10%. It could be a long time before we recover from that. And he said, I don't buy your logic.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it. The economy grew 3% overnight.
Yeah.
And they were sincere. They weren't like trying to fool him, or they weren't on the take from the gangs or anything. They genuinely went, it's a complex, messy system, sir. Complex systems, got to be careful. Mm-hmm. And he took a bet, and he got the opposite result.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it would damage the American economy. I'm just saying that part of the reason that it was so popular, and part of the reason it was being sustained for so long, is because it's paying salaries of Americans. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't seen as a downside. It wasn't just all this money being dumped into other countries for no return whatsoever. There's multiple returns.
Yes, but my point back to you is that return wouldn't be worth it. The loss of, let's say at max, several million dependents on this crony corrupt scheme that's going on, but just with USAID. Okay, the loss of income and therefore economic
contraction.
Well, no, the
loss of
economies of scale they represent, the value they actually add to the total GDP of the economy, their loss would have non-linear gains elsewhere that would outweigh it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the bet they should go with.
Mm-hmm.
That's an objective, that's a subjective take on it.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't think there's any reason.
This is a criminal scheme.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, criminal. Criminal. I don't know if it's criminal. I mean, you're allowed to do whatever you want with your money. Like, it's criminal from a certain perspective, I suppose, if you want. But like, if the U.S. government employs a particular U.S. government, or successive U.S. governments decide to employ, hundreds of thousands or even millions of Americans overseas in jobs that they've created, the American government has created overseas, and they're all in a big kind of club in a certain sense. They're all members of USAID, or they're all members of one of the other organizations, and they're all happy because they've all got jobs, and it's a government job, and it's safe and secure and all that kind of stuff. Then, if there's no like Trump to come along to say this is a waste of money, then they're not going to change it. So, despite the reason I was saying that was in response to the Africans saying that. The Africans might complain, some Africans or whoever in any country that are recipients of certain USAID grants for certain things, they might say this is bullshit, or we don't even get much of this money, or we don't see the effects of much of this money, we don't see the tangible benefits.
The water is still not in the village.
Yeah, well,
and that's
the point is that they may not, but the employees of USAID do.
But this
because
is
they're getting a paycheck at the end every month.
This is what the people like Bernie Sanders and so on, like he even had a video talking about how the USAID goes towards funding the feeding of poor children in Africa, and it's like the people in Africa are saying we don't see any of this stuff. Yeah. Like, or if they do, it's like 2% maybe of the ostensible alleged amount that they're giving to these people, and so it's
cronyism. It's a bureaucratic state, and it's jobs for the bureaucrats. Yeah, it's jobs for or jobs for USAID employees, and on the ground they're going the people. It's like that phrase, it's very difficult to convince someone of the truth of something if their paycheck depends on them not believing the truth of what you're saying, right? So you can go to any number of these USAID employees or whoever and say, look, you're not really doing very much in Africa here. You're not really helping. Have you seen much change here? Well, we've seen a lot of change, and blah, 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 narrative, because my paycheck. Yeah. Right, so it's self-perpetuating, self-sustaining. It's a crony job. It's money for old rope, basically. And so governments are known for that,
So fire them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, sure, yeah,
fire them. But look, it's a whole. As I like to say now to say it back to myself now, if you're going to change one thing, you got to change. You can't, or if one thing could be different, everything would be. The only way Trump can go further than this the current status is a 90-day suspension on this, and we're just reviewing it. But the way it's possibly going, and it's been suggested strongly by not least by Musk himself, is that a lot of things will be permanently changed. Well, part of that package has to be it seems to be in Trump's mind, because he said it often enough now, that there will be so many other changes on the other side of the scale affecting the balance. Namely, he suggested removing income tax fully, but even if it's just the tax rates are halved, you're talking about the cash that can be freed, the spending power that can be freed, and therefore there's an economic theory to show it. When you reduce taxes, people pay more and they dodge less, and actually the tax coffers to the state go up. So there are all kinds of other things that can happen if they take a holistic, whole of government, whole of society approach to changing. But the criminals or the cronyism, I can't feel sympathy for them or much empathy for their economic footprint, either for just the United States budget or on a global scale. I think the sentiment everywhere seems to be, this is a waste. It's a waste, and it's retarding everything else. It's not just the sum of the aid money that was sent for $70,000 for a transgender opera. It's like all of those little payments to a country like Ireland are creating an effect in the country that's retarding it in lots of other ways.
Well, Ireland's not a good example. Apparently they didn't get much in the way of. They're getting well paid by,
In other ways, yeah.
in other ways by,
Corporate U.S. corporate profit tax.
yeah.
There's a guy that Trump's brought in. He's Jewish, American though. I forget his name. There's a clip. Oh, I showed it to you earlier in the week. Delahunty shared it. It's a clip of this guy railing about all the big Silicon Valley companies laundering their profits to Ireland and then only paying tiny taxes once it comes back to the United States. That sounds like he's got it in his sights.
Yeah. All of this was actually spelled out by this in this manual. It was kind of crazy when they released it. It's called the U.S. Government Counterinsurgency Guide, January 2009. United States Government Interagency Counterinsurgency Initiative, 2009. On the next page, if you click over one page, you can see it was signed by Henrietta Ford, the administrator of USAID, Robert Gates, Secretary of Defense, and Condoleezza Rice, Secretary of State. And it's a very interesting manual because it basically spells out exactly what we've been talking about, how you go about this. Of course, it's framed in terms of how to build and maintain empire. It's basically a counterinsurgency, as you know, is and who's the person who wrote the introduction? Elliot A. Cohen, who I think is a neocon.
Yes.
And he, at the time, was the Counselor of the Department of State. Counselor of the Department of State. A counselor. Is that an advisor to the council? So, and then next page is... Insurgency is the organized use of subversion and violence to seize, nullify, or challenge political control of a region. And blah, 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 blah. So they do counterinsurgency, as and this is around the world, obviously, to prevent... and then, down below it says counterinsurgency is the blend of comprehensive civilian and military efforts designed to simultaneously contain insurgency and address its root causes. So America looks around the world at all its friends and partners. It sees threats from insurgency to that country, and then it develops counterinsurgency, how to stop those people from doing it. But of course, America, in many cases, there was no problem in the country. Let's say it was the American foreign policy was insurgency. They were actually creating the insurgency to overthrow a government. But counterinsurgency is supposedly the official version. This manual is we're developing this policy or this plan, basically plan of action of how to deal with insurgency in a country when it just rises up to overthrow a stable country or something like that. That's a friend of ours. Some group within the country tries to get rid of the existing government. They don't mention anything about the situation where America might decide that they need to get rid of this stable government in the country that they don't like. Then they do insurgency in the country. Anyway, and it's all about it's got a big chapter on USAID and how USAID is very important in all of this. But they have a nice page. What page is this? Page 21, I think. On page 21, it's quite interesting. Can you zoom in a little bit? There's zoom buttons on the bottom right there.
The graph. The chart.
Yeah, so it's the components of counterinsurgency. Counterinsurgency. So you've got the tap of information flow, mix information with security and the economic aspect, filter it through the funnel of political strategy, and down below, what do you get? Control. So they're quite open about it, you know. So information component is information, acquiring knowledge and exerting influence is the base component for all other activities. Economic development, this includes immediate humanitarian relief and the provision of essential services, as well as essential services being like water and electricity and shit, right? After you've blown them up first with your jihadi, your insurgency group that you've funded, you get them to blow it up, and then you come in and say, here, we'll provide it for you. So you take control of essential services within the country in order to maintain control. The security component, providing physical security against insurgent violence, though often operative, is only one step in progressing towards humanitarian security, which also encompasses the maintenance of laws, human rights. So we're talking about the US government maintaining laws, human rights, freedom to conduct economic activity, public health and safety. Is there anything else any other components of the running of an actual state that And then political strategy, obviously, the framework of political reconciliation, genuine reform, popular mobilization, and government capacity building around which all other programs control. The information security and development components combine with the political strategy to enable the affected government to control its environment. With our help, of course, with our control of their control. Anyway, so it's pretty interesting. I've got a whole chapter, like I said, a whole section on USAID, and got some nice pictures of the work of USAID and stuff, and that's from 2009. So it's pretty much all there in the broad sweep of it, and then what we're seeing being revealed on Twitter with all of the specifics of the actual programs and stuff is, all the details, of how that control was exerted, i.e., across the board in many countries, right down to the levels that we've talked about already, building houses, teaching people, providing hospitals, healthcare services, etc., etc. So the question of what I'm kind of wondering is, yes, we're probably likely to see the end of the faggy diversity and freedom and democracy based, infiltration and control and funding of all that in various countries. But what this might mean is, by taking all of that away, well, first of all, you're reducing at that level. You're reducing the American government's influence in that country. If you remove funding for all of those things, if you stop building houses, if you stop funding rape crisis centers, if you stop funding, research into the specific variety of butterfly that happened to be in that country, and et cetera, then yes, you're reducing your footprint, you're reducing your presence in that country in that way, and maybe you can do that, and you can still maintain control, or presumably Trump believes that you can do all of that, take all of that bullshit away, and still maintain the kind of control that we exerted over those countries. Or maybe
they don't.
Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't believe that. Maybe he believes that he can remove all of the ways in which, until now, the American empire has sustained itself, in the ways we've just been talking about and that are all over Twitter, and instead, plus all the ways that you've seen on Twitter, plus that kind of covert influence of politicians or bribing or threats or whatever other ways that they did the more traditional means. And maybe they'll stop having funding color revolutions. They'll stop trying to directly influence countries in that way, and just let them fly on their own, swim on your own. And then what will happen? Well, those countries will have to adjust for that lack of American presence, American influence and control and investment in their country, maybe. I mean, this goes along with Trump's tariffs and all that kind of stuff. He's talking about maybe not just taking away all of that American money that's gone into your country, but we're also going to now
charging you,
hurt your economy. If needs be, we're going to threaten your economy. And then those countries will have to maybe adjust, and maybe they won't like America anymore. Maybe they'll form other alliances. Countries might start forming different blocs that would be in opposition to America. And Trump believes that that's fine because America has enough wealth and might economically, or he hopes to build it up enough, I suppose, to have that kind of indigenous wealth and manufacturing and all that kind of stuff, to be able to still be the dominant power in the world that can still, to a large extent, call the shots. And in that way, he can still maintain the American standard of living, and even grow it and make it better, by bringing manufacturing back home, all that kind of stuff. At least in the way he's talking about it, that seems to be, that sounds like what he wants to do, which he wants to basically retreat from the world, retreat from empire building, retreat from financing the empire, and just compete in an open market, and may the best man win type thing.
So
I think if that happens, America's screwed. Go ahead.
Relinquish, say, control.
Yeah.
And if that happens, the US is screwed.
I think. Yeah. I don't think he'll be able to do what he wants to do, because in that in that new paradigm, or that new structure of global economics. He needs, like he says, he needs to impose tariffs. He needs to threaten other countries. He needs to stop there being a trade imbalance and all that kind of stuff. He wants countries who are American companies that are producing overseas and paying tax overseas to bring it back home and pay tax back at home and manufacture back at home and all that kind of stuff. But that implies that all those other countries lose to one extent or another. You can't really take from those countries. At least initially, it's going to damage them. Imagine if they did that in Ireland. I mean, they're talking about it. People are talking about it already. Ireland's just one example, but if he was to force those countries to, if not bring those companies back home or repatriate those at least some of those companies back home, at the very least to have them pay taxes back at home, the large amount of tax that are paid in Ireland and that goes to the Irish government, that would have to come back home. So Ireland would, by definition, lose. It would have a net reduction in its tax receipts.
Yeah,
that's just one example. If that's replicated in many other countries around the world, then
but then it's not exactly.
I don't think it's a zero-sum game.
Exactly, it's also like giving people back their autonomy in a sense, and we have no idea what that's going to look like. Yeah. Because if you're keeping down all of these populations from doing what they want to do, whatever that is, that's not only political; it's also economic. We have no idea what kind of world we would be living in had it not been intentionally
and artificially constructed this way.
Yeah, exactly. So where would we have flying cars? Maybe.
Probably not.
Probably not yet. But maybe.
Well, no, I'm just saying that I think that readjustment is it's going to be very difficult to do.
Yeah, a lot of countries would have to effectively reindustrialize, including the US.
Yeah.
I know.
And it would be a long process, and I think there's many pitfalls along the way. And that's leaving aside different powerful players who may not want to play along with Trump's agenda. He doesn't hold all the cards in that respect,
attempt to deliberately break something key along the way.
Yeah, because like these guys, a lot of this, we're all talking about USAID and stuff, and it seems like, there's this obvious embeddedness between USAID and a lot of what the CIA does, but we also know that these big banks do a lot of shady things with drug money, and we have no idea to the extent which that exists and funds all of the shady things that the real secret team, deep state-esque people do. And so, that's a whole separate economy that is outside of the purview of Doge.
Yeah. I mean, one example is like Africa, why Russia and China have been making inroads into Africa in the past maybe 10 years or so, increasingly so, for the resources in African countries. And that's something that's why China in particular, at least under previous administrations, China was seen as the enemy. We have to contain China and stop China, all that kind of stuff. What do you mean stop China? Stop China doing what? Being Chinese? No, we have to stop them from
growing.
And
it's too late because they're now on the same size economy as the United States.
We have to stop them expanding around the world as well and taking the resources that we need. There's a battle for resources. There's a new scramble for Africa. There's a new scramble for the Arctic and all that kind of stuff.
It's like trying to hold back the tide.
I know, but that's a pitfall. For example, like what are you going to do? I mean, are you going to? Would that imply? Say China is in various African countries, and they're they've friendly relations with the government in that country. Does the CIA do what its bread and butter is, which is go in there, fund some rebels, overthrow the government?
That's what we want to end, because that shit is breaking the stuff the Chinese are trying to build.
I know, but if Trump needs those resources, if America needs those resources,
too bad, sink or swim.
Well, is he going to give that up when they do this audit of USAID intel agencies to the best of their ability and all that kind of stuff, and see what they're doing? What are they going to put back? What are they going to keep? Are they going to keep funding the CIA to do those kind of things because it's in America's national interest? Say, look, Mr. President, that money that goes to the intel agencies, okay, maybe there's a lot of waste and all that kind of stuff, but we definitely need to keep a lot of it, because we certainly need to be able to continue to do what we've been doing for the past, since we were created, basically, which is to push back against America's peer competitors in the world, which is China, Russia, and others. Because if we don't, then they're going to gain access to. If we just leave it all alone, they'll gain. I mean, we are separated from all of these people and all of these resources by the Atlantic Ocean. It's their backyard. If that's the reason we did this in the first place. If we just back away from that and leave that alone, they're going to gain access to a lot of these resources that are crucial to American national interest. So you definitely need to keep funding the CIA for those kind of operations. And what does Trump say to that? No, that's naughty. I don't like naughty things.
No, I don't think it's a moral thing. I think it's a waste. I think he sees the CIA's preliminary ops in the Middle East, which led to a $6 trillion investment that returned. Well, we don't know. How do we put a calculus on what the Iraq War actually brought back for them?
Yeah, no. But that was a grift. But he would want to do it smarter.
Oh, he would want to do it smarter.
Of course. Well, why do you want to invade Greenland?
Smarter.
Why is he going to invade Greenland? Is he going to stop at Greenland? Is Greenland the limit? Is that enough? Greenland's enough? What if we've identified serious natural resources in this particular African country and the Chinese are all over it? Okay, well, how do we get access to them? Can we get access to at least some of them? We need to send in. We need to do what we've done. We have
them a better deal.
We have 80 years.
He's a deal maker.
Win-win cooperation, mutual, new world order now, Joe.
No.
China set new standard, and America struggling to cope with new standard, and it realized it cannot just blow the shit out of anymore because
they can't offer a better deal to those countries than China will be offering, or Russia.
Exactly.
They can't.
So China is adaptive.
Right.
The world will therefore adapt to America going, what the fuck do we do now?
Yeah.
I don't think if America goes, the whole thing goes, oh my God, it's over.
So in that situation, since China can't offer a better deal, does Trump say no to the CIA
China
saying,
can.
to America not being able to offer a better deal? Does Trump say no to the CIA doing what it's been doing for the past 80 years, which one is very experienced at, which is go in there, foment a revolution, overthrow the government, put in a new government that likes America better than it likes China? Does he say no to that?
I think he has to, because the reality on the ground is that masses of Africans are waving Russian flags. 4 countries in Central Africa fell last year in a row, and they're locked in together, and they've got the arm to the teeth, and they're like, we're not going back. We're not going back. We know this game. We've had it played on us 100 times in 100 years. Right. We're fucking done with this shit.
Well, in that case, then
this is a global change. This is not just Trump. This is a change in the minds of people, billions of people.
Well, in that case, then America collapses.
Exactly. It's done. That's America, as it has been, the way it has operated, is done.
Yeah, but that's
isn't
a
a subjective wish.
That's a serious contraction of America, and I don't think it's something that America can survive. America can't adjust. The window for America to adjust to a new multipolar world has closed.
Yes, it's too late.
Quite a long time ago.
I would agree with that. It's too late.
Well, that's just my central thesis. So, but I'm still leaving it open.
And that could pull down more than just the United States. Of course.
But I'm still leaving it open. I still don't know that Trump would turn around and say no to those kind of CIA operations, back to the bread and butter kind of stuff that the CIA was doing before all this.
You would agree, though, that he has signaled that he's going to go about it a different way by upfront screaming tariffs, Greenland, Canada,
Panama
Canal. Yeah. You agree this is very different from secret reports that Condoleezza Rice signs off, that a few faggy friends in DC get to read and go, yes, I'm interpreting the language correctly. I think she means we need to kill their leader. Mm-hmm. That shit's over.
Yeah. Well,
Trump is saying that shit's over because he's talking a different game.
He's talking a different game in his backyard. You can exert that influence on Panama because of the trade space. You can exert that influence on Canada because on the border, on Greenland because it's not far away and you already have a couple of military bases there. What about African countries? What about Asian countries that are miles away and that China and Russia are moving into? You may have to use different methods to.
The old methods. The old man's going to make it. They hope, or he's considering it.
I'm just saying that he's faced with some difficult choices,
Yeah. Well, look, he did do that, Venezuela, in his first term. That was the old style.
Mm-hmm.
where he rants about socialism and he's a socialist dictator on the surface and left it at that. Behind the scenes, they sent multiple hit teams to try and whack, including a drone attack to try and assassinate Maduro and rig the elections and get fucking Guaido in. And what did they reveal this week? Guaido and the NGO propping him up got $200 million from USAID, and it fucking failed. It was $250 million and it did nothing. Maduro's still there. So, yeah, he tried the old way in Venezuela. If he's at all smart, he realized we just wasted our time. And he has this time signaled in his first week in office that he's going about it differently by sending Rick Grinnell to Venezuela to make a good deal, a deal that so impressed the shit out of Maduro. He had his staff make sure it's told to the press that this is a way we can do business with the United States of America. This was awesome. Upfront, clean, and we're open for further business, i.e. oil.
Again, his backyard, Joe.
Yeah.
Eurasia, as you know, has 80% of the world's resources and 80% of the world's population.
Eurasia has been, I know. And that's Mike Benz's focus as well. For him, the scale fell when he realized that Eurasia is the key to the whole machinery. And
like America has, and someone said it recently, actually, the reason they've been insulated against any kind of blowback, the reason they've been able to do what they've done over the course of the last century, let's say, mostly in Eurasia, is because there's this large ocean between us and them. You know, we can light fires over there. We can have wars. We can have revolutions.
Doesn't matter.
Blowback happens to those silly European people and other people in Eurasia. But now
Ukraine was a testimony to that.
But now that ocean, yeah, exactly. But now that ocean may be actually, rather than a benefit, may become a serious disadvantage that you're so far away.
Yeah.
Especially if there's some kind of further progress towards our kind of knitting together of Eurasia or Eurasian integration. And China's One Belt, One Road.
Potentially another.
Which was part of Panama, actually. The Panama thing, that was mentioned in the One Belt, One Road thing. The president of Panama said that they're not going to renew and he specifically said the Chinese One Belt, One Road deal that we had with them over ports here. And that's because Trump said stop that from happening.
Yes.
So the question is whether or not...
Trump could offer him a better deal or something that seemed more attractive.
Well, maybe,
he could in that case.
Somebody with more knowledge of economics and the whole, supply chain of resources and the access to resources and the control of resources, someone with more knowledge about that will have to opine on this. But can America survive economically at the same level it's at now and even grow with that kind of tariffs and trade, open market type thing, and just exploiting its backdoor, its backyard resources and the countries in its backyard, and not be too focused on Eurasia anymore? Because that's where all this USAID money and all that kind of stuff, the vast majority of it is going to
Central Asia,
to Eurasia.
Well, Georgia,
yeah,
but Georgia's the most recent. Ukraine, we know, has been burning away because they started that fire back in 2014. But Georgia most recently tried to do business as usual. They've already succeeded with the so-called Rose Revolution that had that shithead successfully installed back in like 2004. Well, they tried to do it again. Business as usual, right? Trump's coming. Screw that. We're going to do the Georgia thing. It failed.
Well, the Georgia thing was that it's stuff that's hangover. Maybe Trump's only in office. Like, No,
I'm not suggesting that's him doing business. That was happening over Christmas.
Yes, that's a hangover from. And there's certain things that still have legs that are still going, and that's something that, like, Trump comes into office and starts this audit of what the American government is doing at home and around the world, and they're looking at a bunch of things that in different countries, a bunch of different operations in different countries that have been ongoing for 3-4 years. Do they continue? Maybe it's a bit early to say, but you would see, if Trump was serious about stopping that kind of shit, you would see those things grind to a halt very quickly. You wouldn't see the kind of protests and all that kind of stuff with waving American flags and fucking in one of the Balkans or in one of the
Well,
like in Georgia or Romania or wherever, you won't see American flags. You won't see protest signs in English and all that kind of stuff anymore. You won't see those protests anymore if Trump actually manages to cut off the kind of funding for that.
well, that's a big unknown. Does the CIA have enough effective parallel resources of its own that it can just get the executive order and go crumple it up and just chuck it over there and just send the planes out anyway?
Exactly, black budget.
We don't know how big that is. We have some hints from the first term that he was literally ignored. He was told, yes, sir, when asked to remove 500 troops from northeast Syria, and they told him they did it. And then they said they didn't. And then after gloated to the media, after it had been rigged against them to say, we never actually did that.
Haha, we didn't do it.
This time, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that's it. And this is the substantive reason not to get too excited about USAID contracts being cut off, because I've heard both this week. Some saying the USAID is the key linchpin between the CIA and the State Department. It's the key to it all. But my instinct is, no, that's bullshit. It's more like the soft power arm of the CIA, which has the parallel military structure. The black budgets that come from drug operations. I mean, the banks they go into, like in Switzerland. You're talking audit.
You're talking about the real deep state, the real mover and shakers behind the scenes, and whether or not what Trump can do by trying to get rid of the instruments of those powers. You know what I mean? Behind the scenes, like USAID would be an instrument of that, and all the people, all the people working in USAID and all that kind of stuff are just instruments of a CIA agenda. If you get rid of all the people who actually implement your agenda, how much does that actually thwart your agenda?
Yeah,
you'd think significantly, actually. But
does the CIA this week go, we've had a bad week, we've lost a battalion, but we've still got an army?
Yeah,
I think the key to this may be what Trump does with Israel / Gaza / it's Eurasia,
thorny question.
It's Middle East, it's the energy spigot of the world. Not Israel, but as we've discussed, it's placed there. It's America's beachhead, right, in the most important place on earth for energy flows and the backing of the petrodollar, etc., etc.
He's obviously not going to walk away from Israel,
right?
Everybody agrees on that, right? One thing he's not walking away from. So
the first visit to the White House, just like last time, maybe it's standard, maybe it's SOP going back before Trump, is Benjamin Netanyahu. His first foreign visit himself will be, like last time, to Saudi Arabia next week, I believe. I don't know if we want to talk about that crazy encounter, but the upshot of it is, of course, Trump saying America's going to own Gaza. What did he mean by that? He's clearly angling at a solution to ending the situation in Gaza. It's
in the only way he can.
It smacks of ethnic cleansing, because he says we're going to get them out and then we're going to rebuild it. It's totally vague as to whether he means we're going to rebuild it so that they can come back in, or the Israeli Jews can come back in. It's absolutely shocking what took place there. I think it was so shocking. That's partly why you see Bibi's face going, what the hell did he just say? Even he's surprised. I don't know. I suppose it perfectly epitomizes the overall question. What can he really do? How serious is he? Is he going to do it? They're kind of all wrapped up into one question, and what he does with Israel is fundamental to that.
Yeah.
Because Israel is, of course, it's 100% dependent on US largesse, on US military
protection,
on US military remaining throughout the Middle East. They're so paranoid. I'm sure they were involved in just the thought of 500 troops leaving northeast Syria was probably like, no, one step back and the whole thing could fall, So I don't think he's even able to bargain a slimming down of U.S. presence in the Middle East. It must be sustained, maintained, and if anything, grown. So
Well, they're opening in the process. Of
it really is an all or nothing thing.
They're in the process of building a massive quote unquote embassy in Beirut.
Yes.
You can look at it on Google Maps, and 5,000 personnel in one embassy. So it's going to be about the same size as the Green Zone in Baghdad.
Yeah.
So it's not an embassy like 5,000 people, something like 46 acres or something like that.
Textbook garrison. It's a garrison.
And Lebanon has kind of fallen in that respect, like Hezbollah has done. There's a whole new reality coming out of the Middle East, like that era of Hezbollah, Palestinians, Hezbollah, Syria. It all fell very quickly, and I think it is pretty much changed definitively now for the future. We're entering a new phase, and that's why Trump feels emboldened to say we're going to build some apartments in Gaza. And own it.
It's such
going to
an
be
out there
beachfront
thing
property
to say.
because, it's crazy. It's stupid for him to say it in that way, but a lot of things he says are stupid and aren't actually what he actually means. Let's say, but yeah, I think it's indicative of a totally a new era in the Middle East. But obviously, there's significant details as to how those details are going to be worked out. Like, what are you going to do with what Gaza is like? What are you going to do with the Palestinians? What are you going to do with 1.8 million people? And
He
also,
said Jordan and Egypt will take them, and Egypt immediately issues a statement and said, "No, we won't."
Yeah.
So then an Israeli minister said, "Don't worry, Spain, Norway, and Ireland will take them because they've agreed to recognize the state of Palestine."
because they've been
That logically follows.
Well, he said because they've been bitching at us and accusing us for bad things, so they get to take some Palestinian refugees now. Yeah. What were you going to say? You were going to talk about something.
Oh, the Andy No.
Do tell me.
Yeah. So there was Andy No has been doing a couple of series, a couple of articles on this trans cult. It's called the Ziz cult, and so basically, and the reason why this is kind of like coming out is because on the day that Trump was inaugurated, there was a Border Patrol agent in Vermont who was killed.
Oh yeah.
By two trans activists, one of whom was German, and so that got media attention. But apparently, before this, these two are actually involved with this group who's being led by this guy named Lesota, who they're all kind of. Well, it's all weird because they're all very well educated. They're all from very well-off families. They're all trans. They all have the non-binary, Zer pronoun things. And we're living in autonomous zones. And so their idea was, okay, we're going to all create autonomous zones and we're all going to be vegan together. And,
in America.
Yeah. And So this gal who was involved in the shooting in Vermont was a fiance to someone who, let me see if I can get this right because it was kind of actually I'll send this to Scotty because it'll be helpful to have it as a visual guide.
It reminds me of the environmental extremists in the 70s and 80s, like Weather Underground. They actually detonated some bombs and killed a few people, I think.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at?
So the
Ziz cult.
The Ziz cult. So Jack Ziz Lesota is the head of this group, and they had the two that are just below the main picture, the one with the pink hair and the multicolored glasses. Those are the two who had gone to Vermont and killed the Border Patrol agent, which is there in the middle at the bottom. Well, the weapons that had been found on them, the weapons they had were purchased by the person on the right. What is it? Michelle Zolka, something like that. It's a dude.
Yeah.
It looks like an ugly chick, but it's a dude. And so he was the son of this Pennsylvania couple there at the bottom right, who was murdered under mysterious circumstances. And see, so their son bought the weapons for the girl and the guy who killed the Border Patrol agent, but also bought weapons for the people on the left-hand side who killed their landlord in California. And so what's interesting about that particular case was the landlord there at the very bottom on the left, he was the one who owned the land. They were all squatting there. He was trying to get them evicted. They stab him with a sword.
Right.
He shoots one of them, kills him. And one of the things that he was doing at the time when this happened was he was like investigating. He was kind of like looking around. What are these crazy people doing? Because they're just walking around naked on my property.
Strange, yeah.
He finds a bunch of like chemical barrels, lye, things like that. And when his neighbor saw his attack, and so that was how they were able to like keep him from getting killed, was because the cops came and arrested the two at the top. And he said that he thought that they were going to basically use these barrels of chemicals to disintegrate his body after they killed him.
My first thought, yeah.
Which is very much Jeffrey Dahmer-esque.
Yeah, although it's been on so many TV shows now. But go on. Yeah.
So transgender Zizians.
Yeah.
Waging a full ground war in the United States.
Yeah. It's
CIA
weird.
front.
Yeah.
Because Ziz was in police custody at one point, and then faked his death, and the only reason he was able to do that was because they had him on a $500,000 bail, which was immediately lowered to $10,000. Posts the money, leaves, fakes his death, and allegedly he's been dead ever since. Except that he keeps appearing in all these other places and things.
He has been seen since.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was all funded by USAID. All these people were funded by USAID.
I haven't found that connection, but I wouldn't be surprised.
They did find USAID funding for Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And who was it? The girl in the pink with the pink hair. She went to, and I think maybe one of the other ones as well, went to the same school, the same private school in Seattle, I think, as none other than Bill Gates.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
So
she went to the same school. Well, she would have been much younger, but still, Seattle, of course, is also the site of that, commune experiment.
Yeah.
What do they call it?
Yeah,
they broke away from the US.
This is an outplay of the social programming of the transgender social programming business. Like this is, you're enabling and encouraging and promoting people who are mentally unstable, basically, obviously mentally unstable. So yeah, you think we should expect more of this?
I don't know if I would expect more of it, but it caught my attention just because it seemed to be, the radical agenda of it all just kind of seemed to
just matured
into like a terror cult.
Yeah, that's where it was going. Yeah, very interesting. So okay, Israel. Nobody knows what's going to happen in Israel, but obviously Gaza is but I don't know. Gaza is a bomb site, basically, literally a bomb site, and there's one interesting thing that Trump said was that when he was asked about how many people he was going to move out of Gaza, he said 1.7 to 1.8 million people, and before Israel started bombing it, there were about 2.1 to 2.3 million people. So you're talking in the region of about 300,000 to 400,000 people killed. Most of them women and children. That's how the Israelis roll, and so you can definitely say that Trump doesn't put too much emphasis on any kind of morality, right? He's not a stickler for the morals of things. He's not going to, although in South Africa he said they're doing very bad things by removing white farmers off their land. That's very bad morally. So he's imposed tariffs in South Africa because they're morally removing.
One's mind immediately thinks of Israel, in fact, and South Africa being a prime target. South Africa as it is now, because they're the ones who initiated the ICC.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he said officially said he didn't say that was the reason. He said they're doing very bad things in terms of basically what he was alluding to was their policies,
Expropriations of land.
Yeah, from white farmers and stuff. And of course, Elon Musk will be close to that as well, being from there and all that kind of stuff. So he's biased in that respect. So Trump supposedly is going to impose or has imposed tariffs in South Africa, using that as an example. But apparently, expropriation of land and killing of indigenous people to land doesn't apply to Israel, obviously. So hypocrisy, it's way of life, right? So don't get hung up on any hypocrisy.
Do you? So yeah,
the 5G chess thing in Israel is that
right. Is there any?
Yeah, well, of course there is.
Is there any hope of it?
Well, I was speaking to Q there a while ago, and Q has informed.
On the face of it, it looks awful. It always does.
Yeah, but that's when you know that it's 5G chess, right? Whenever it looks really bad for your team, you know that they're actually winning and they're doing what you want them to do.
Trump's leading them into a trap.
He's leading them into a trap, yes, exactly. He actually hates Netanyahu.
He wants the Palestinians out so that the trap can be sprung.
Yes, exactly.
And then the Palestinians can move back into the Trump Tower resort.
Yes, and he'll repay them
and Disney World
for all the bad things
Jihad
America
Disney
did.
World. And
yes, and he'll repay them for all the bad things America and Israel have done. So just wait for more Q drops on that one.
That's obviously silly, but
that's copium.
Is there kind of a reality-based copium to this?
Reality-based copium is that Trump.
What am I getting at? I mean,
I know what you mean. Trump.
So, because it's mind-boggling because you're asked to believe they really don't see any of the double standards as they apply to Israel. On the very same thing he rants about on every other sphere, like, why are we giving so much money to our allies? They never pay us any money. Mm-hmm. Pay into coffers and NATO and bitches about Germany and France and England and everyone else. And then Israel's here like
$3 billion a year.
Just keep it coming. Year. Keep it coming. Oh, there's Bibi. Let me push his chair in. Like, it's over the top.
Yeah. Well, that's one for people, the MAGA supporters, to figure out, But... So you have to put a lot of faith in Trump or in Trump in that respect, that he has some kind of a plan, because I mean, they really have captured. You talk about America capturing other countries ideologically and culturally, economically, and militarily capturing other countries in the interest of empire. America has been captured clearly by Israel a very long time ago, in all those same ways, not militarily, but in all the other ways, and. They
under a spell.
They can't move a muscle, basically. You know what I mean? But then you go back to RFK Jr. saying, "Look, it's very simple. There are land-based." He literally said it, and you can leave it at that. He said, "There literally are unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Middle East. If we don't have Israel there, if they're not our friend, then Russia and China come in, dominate those resources, and we're fucked."
That's why
he didn't say fucked, but that's pretty much what he meant, and that's the long and the short of it. You don't have to go any further. That's literally it.
That's why you buy Gaza and you turn it into a resort town.
Yeah.
So that way you have an interest there that's not Zionist.
Uh-huh.
There's my cope.
And how does Israelis going to deal with that?
And where do the Palestinians go?
I haven't figured that one out yet.
It's kind of important because
wherever they go, at least they're not going to get bombed.
Anything else is ethnic cleansing. I know Trump doesn't mean to literally kill them all, but it will be the textbook and legal definition of ethnic cleansing. And he will be internationally condemned for it.
But that's so 20th century, and he doesn't care what people think about him. Ethnic cleansing is it's a done deal. I mean, the only thing you could say about him is that he's looking at it from a realistic point of view. He wasn't there when it was happening. It happened under the Biden administration. Who knows if he would have been able to stop it or reduce it in some way. But anyway, it's a done deal. So you come to that situation, you look at it as a done deal. Gaza has been destroyed. Palestinians can't live there practically. So he's just trying to do the best that he can.
Here's my copium fantasy. Israel, with its influence and tentacles and blackmail and Epstein networks and possibly hidden nukes in and around DC or whatever the fuck they're up to, those evil bastards, they get the United States up to the point of being about to go weapons hot with them in Iran. Israel's I don't know, for the first time, they're not paranoid about it and they're confident and they go in. Iran fights back and the US doesn't shoot down those missiles and goes, Trump's, I don't know. and then I'm not saying it's overnight one fell swoop, but it does, let's say, decapitate the government substantially.
Mm-hmm.
Israel has to pause. It can't keep going. It's done for militarily. Okay. And then Trump delays giving a statement. Then finally he comes out. The world's media is there, and everyone's freaking out. And he just says, "Oh, that's a shame." That's my fantasy
He'll just say that
version of how this is going to go down.
Yeah, well, that's when we've thought about
Because
that.
why would he care any more than anywhere else?
Well,
Not America.
Yeah.
He has already said, "Not our war."
yeah, although he has
And
also.
then Bibi came to town and he pushed his chair.
But he has also said when he was asked about some reporter, and I would look at that reporter actually. I would want to know who that reporter is that asked him that question. About, he said there's been reports in the media and stuff that Iran might be trying to assassinate you. And it's like, where the fuck did that come from?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
He brought that up just out of the blue. That's kind of weird. Are you trying to kind of spread that, bring that back, bump that thread up, so that it's in the media, it's in the public consciousness? And he said there's been reports that Iran, because that goes back to post, what do you call it? Was it Baker? What do you call it? Bakersfield? No.
Butler, yeah.
Butler.
Yes.
Butler assassination attempt, when the FBI announced that, it's not really relevant now. Well, it's not actually related to the assassination attempt at all, but we have been working. They just threw that out there, the FBI, right after the assassination. We had been working on the past few weeks, we've been working on a group, surveilling a group within the US who we believe had the intent to assassinate the president, but it's not related to crooks in this assassination attempt. But we know that the Iranians were trying to put something together to try and carry out an assassination attempt on Trump. Very interesting. That means that if Trump had actually been assassinated, it was going to be blamed on Iran, and then they were going to have a war with Iran. So there's a big.
It suggests that.
There's a group. Yeah, it suggests that. So there's a group within the US, primarily staffed by the Israelis and the Israeli firsters among the Americans, who are still gunning and want and are working behind the scenes to have some kind of a war with Iran. Of course, the Israelis would love to have a war with Iran to finish the deal. That's in the background, So this reporter asking that question brings it back up, and Trump's response was, "Well, I've made plans. I've left a message, left a note.
In the event that I'm
if
dead,
Iran kills me, blow the shit out of them, or
obliterate them."
Obliterate them. That's more or less what he said. It would be very bad for them, and." So yeah, that was kind of interesting, and it may it may speak to there being, at least on the table as part of the blob, the deep state, their agenda is to try and engineer something that forces Trump / Israel, because obviously it would involve Israel,
Right,
but it may be the Israelis themselves, into some kind of a conflict, bait America or Trump into some kind of a conflict with Israel. I mean, it's right there. It's definitely something that the Israelis would like to do.
Trump's saying that. This is what I tweeted this. Does it cross his mind when he says that he's dangling a bait for a potential assassination from Israel? Because that would be the golden ticket to get what they want. Well, that would be very bad because Iran will be obliterated, and Israel goes, "Really? That's all it takes?"
Yeah, well, that's your 5D.
Is he so stupid?
That's your 5D test copium type thing, right? Where he's actually doing that deliberately because he's thinking 17 steps ahead, and
bait them
he wants
into
bait Israel,
revealing a hand,
or he wants to bait Israel into doing something to try and provoke. Maybe not. He doesn't want to bait them into assassinating him. I'm pretty sure he wants to bait them into doing something
provocative,
to
like a false flag.
Yeah, to try and start something with Iran, and then he would use that to give Israel enough rope to hang themselves, like you were just saying. That basically.
But more realistically, is what you tweeted, is that if shit hit the fan and there was a false flag in the United States, and it would have to be something spectacular. You suggested dirty nuke. Trump wouldn't have time to say, "Aha, listen, my fellow Americans," because the fellow Americans would be like, "Bomb Iran." It would be over. It would be done.
Yeah, but bomb Iran, but then you could start something, or you could coordinate. If you're going to bomb Iran, you definitely you'd coordinate with Israel, because Israel will be weapons hot to go after Iran. They're just waiting for something like this to happen. Then you coordinate with Israel, and that kicks off, and you do some strikes or whatever. But in amongst that, at a certain point in time, you were saying, you kind of like
back away.
You back away and say, it's not in America's national interest to stop Iran destroying
God,
Israel.
I hope so. God. Copium.
Oh, that
Super
would-
copium.
Related issue. Part of the same conversation we had earlier this week. Because he's Trump and he's just dancing all over the place, we never could get a read on whether he himself is particularly interested in digging into, or if he even can, and finding out the story with Butler. Who was Crooks? Who was behind him? You know, is he, in his mind, does he just leave it like that? Yeah, it was just another, we'll carry on. I disputed with you, and I was saying, well, he got up and he said, fight, fight, fight to the crowd. Like, his instincts were saying, this is them. This is the deep state. Whoever exactly they is.
I don't think there was enough time for him to think that far when he was doing that. Like everybody.
No, it was instinctive.
Yeah,
but he wasn't getting up to say fight, fight, fight against a juvenile delinquent over here hanging out on gab.ia.
Well, he wasn't saying about anybody because he didn't know in that moment who had done
Right,
it. All
okay.
he knew
And
that
then
he was. All he knew was that he was attacked.
Okay, so then the question is simply, does he accept that it's a lone nut? So here's
How can he, with the whole Secret Service stuff and the flat incline on the roof and all that kind of stuff? How can anybody with half a brain assume that this wasn't?
well, that's what we're wondering.
more
That's
than
what
just
we're
crooks?
wondering if he's interested enough.
Well, maybe
to
he
be
does, but
doing
then
a
moves
dig
on
right now.
Well, you would totally take your attention away. You'd have to spend so much time and effort trying to find out who actually, and you'd be stonewalled over and over and over again. And maybe he did try a little bit and saw he was stonewalled. Those people are operating with a full awareness of there being a power behind the throne. You know,
This week, February 8th is yesterday. New York Post: Trump orders Secret Service to provide every bit of information on would-be assassins. Trump ordered the Secret Service Friday, just gone, to provide him every bit of information about his two would-be assassins. I'm entitled to know, he told the Post. Carry on. I want to find out about the two assassins. Why did the one guy have 6 cell phones and why did the other guy have foreign apps? That's a reference to crooks. Because remember, there were apps we couldn't crack.
who's the one guy? Who's the other guy?
The other
guy
guy
on
is Mr.
The Ukraine.
recruiter for Ukraine, Mr. Friends of the CIA
Oh, him.
at the Trump golf course in Florida. No more holding back because of Biden. I'm entitled to know. No excuses. Scroll down. Is there more?
That's the guy.
That's the other guy. 6 cell
Ruth.
phones were allegedly found in the car of Ryan Ruth. And, of course, they just leave it at Thomas Cook shot Trump. Yeah. So
Isn't it strange that the commander in chief, the highest power in the land, has to appeal to someone to find out who tried to assassinate him, and who he's appealing to is the intel agencies that supposedly work for him.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently he's not getting information from the intel agencies about the person who tried to assassinate him, and he's the highest power in the land. Whatever, dude. I don't know. He obviously has to be aware of the fact that there's a power behind the scenes. A lot of them do. They've all come across it, especially longer term politicians and stuff. They all know that there's people pulling the strings, and they just live with it because they realize like that's eyes only. That's not for you to know. Now just get on with your job. So
It's
Trump's
a
like,
nut
well,
you'll
I'll just
never
get on with my
crack.
job, huh?
It's a nut you'll never crack.
Yeah.
do you boys think Musk and Trump love Israel as much as it appears?
Fundamentally, no, because it's not in America's interests.
Or it is?
It is in
Remember,
America's
RFK?
interest. They're torn because it's in America's interests at the moment, and has been for a long time, and still is, economically and influence and power wise. But I think fundamentally they're not. Personally, they're not ideologically possessed by Israel or the Israeli agenda. I don't
get that impression either. I mean, at least with Musk, it seemed to be the fact that he was questioning things right up until he went to Israel, and I can imagine they did a whole work job on him to get him on side. And then, it's more of an existential thing where they present facts in a way that makes their case for them. So that way they're like, see, we're justified because of all of the stuff that we've been showing you. but he doesn't then go on to say, like, I'm a Jew. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
I think Musk did. He did try that tack, didn't he? I'm not a Jew, but I'm almost a Jew. He went to a school or something. That was
It's bizarre.
summer school
Bizarre.
with his Jewish friends.
It's hard to know. I don't know. Those people don't even think that they're in a different reality. I mean, to the extent that they actually, think Israel is great and all that kind of stuff, over and above, beyond what its usefulness to America, if they think it's awesome beyond that, then there's something wrong with their brains. If they buy into the Jewish people, the whole Jewish, 2,000 years ago, God gave us this land and all that kind of stuff, or they're a special people, or if they buy into any of that, then it's lost. If you're ideologically possessed in that way, it's lost. I hope that the two of them are only interested in Israel and only interested in supporting Israel because of practical economic reasons.
Which may change.
Yeah. So there you go.
So you're saying there's a chance.
I'm saying there's a chance, and you'll have to wait and see.
We'll ask Q. We'll ask Q and tell you next week, folks. He lives, somewhere out there on the interwebs.
Yeah. It's all murky, man. It's very hard to probe the deeper levels of it, and you probably don't want to. So anything else?
Record snowfall, northern Japan.
Candace.
Oh, Candace. I'm not going into that, man. Watch it for yourself. Trannies are everywhere.
There's no major reveal, but there won't be. But there's a lot of smoke.
Yeah.
Lots of just interesting contextual data about the circles they emerge from and swim in Paris. What scares me, not scares, but depresses me about it is that Candace is there all excited, thinking, I'm going to bring people along, we're going to bust this wide open and that evil regime's going to fall. Sweetheart, Europeans, especially European literati, intelligentsia, are used to that stuff. They're actually fine with it. Incest and practically inbreeding and
a certain in a certain political class, let's say.
Yeah.
The average person down.
It's the 1980s, not that long ago, when there was a thing in France where if you had troublesome kids, there was a therapeutic recommendation approved by the state that they'd be sent to special facilities where they'd be sleeping with adults to cure them of their disobedience and whatnot. It came out in Germany too. It's a thing there too, or it was anyway. There's a sick culture that's
but how many people did that? Like, I mean, that's at the level of government propaganda and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But the average person doesn't think that way.
No, but too many people. They're freaks, but they're symptoms of a freaky clique at the least.
That's across the world, especially in the West. Okay. We done?
Yeah. Make us laugh.
Where's my joke?
Where's my joke? Where's my goodie? Speaking of
Where's my
goodies.
treat?
Oh, speaking of goodies, yeah. My wife asked me today, earlier on today, if I'd seen the dog bowl. So I was like, no, I didn't even know he could.
The dog bowl?
Have you seen the dog bowl? He's pretty good at it. Come on, Neil. Don't be so slow on the uptake.
Anyway.
Here's one for you, Neil. Would you say that refusing to go to the gym counts as resistance training?
I would, yeah.
Yes.
It does?
Yes.
All right. That's me set for the week then.
2 jokes for 1 this week, folks.
2 for 1. Yeah, anyway, on those 2 hilarious notes, we'll leave it there for this week, folks. Sorry for the short break or long break. halfway through. We'll stitch it together. And we'll be back next week with another show on, like I usually say, whatever madness has been going on between now and then.
Probably something to do with Trump, the way he's going.
Hopefully it's not more USAID. Well, maybe. If there's something really interesting, we might talk about USAID. But my Twitter feed is just full of it. And I'm like, oh, God, USAID. Yes, they did stupid, mad, ridiculous things. They wasted your money. Thanks. I got the message. Can we move on now? Anyway, yeah. So thanks for listening, watching. We'll be back next week with another show. So until then, have a good one. See ya. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Can't stop the signal now.